Hello everyone. The various methods of costing underline that because each industry provides different kind of products, so the generalized costing techniques needs to be adapted as per the product, that is cost unit. So today's topic, process costing, is a kind of method of costing where each process, that is each stage, acts as a different cost unit. What we are up to, that sometimes a raw material, before it reaches the stage of finished goods, passes through various interconnected processes or the stages, and they are consequential in the way that the raw material, when enters the first process or the first stage, and there is an output, and the output of the first process becomes the input for the second process, and this cycle at least goes for minimum two processes and maximum could be any much, and then it finally reaches the stage of the finished goods. So the business can obviously have the customer of the finished goods after all the processes have been completed, but also there can be some intermediate buyers who are ready to buy this so-called work in progress for the industry, which is actually the output of each process. So if the industry calculates the cost of each process separately and also cumulatively, then we will have the cost of each process separately along with the overall cost of the finished goods, and with an agreed profit margin, which stage of the output is to be sold can be always decided at what selling price it should be sold. मतलब अगर मुझे हर प्रोसेस की इंडिविजुअल कॉस्ट पता है और क्यूमुलेटिवली फिनिश गुड्स की कॉस्ट पता है और मेरे को अपने बिजनेस का प्रॉफिट मार्जिन का एस्टिमेशन है, तो मेरे पास जिस भी स्टेज का कस्टमर आएगा उस प्रोसेस तक की टोटल कॉस्ट को, अगर मेरे पास फर्स्ट प्रोसेस का कस्टमर है तो C1 की कॉस्ट में प्रॉफिट का मार्जिन जोड़कर मैं सेलिंग प्राइस पे बेच दूंगा। अगर मेरे पास सेकंड प्रोसेस के बाद का कस्टमर है, प्रेज्यूमिंग कि हमारे पास तीन प्रोसेस हैं जिसके बाद हमारे पास फिनिश गुड्स निकल कर आते हैं, और मेरे पास अगर second process के बाद का customer है, तो this C2 must be inclusive of the C1 so that it is a cumulative cost, and when I add the profit margin, then this selling price is the combined cost of process 1 and process 2 along with the profit margin, and similarly the C3 will denote the cost price of the finished goods, where if I add the profit margin, I will get the final selling price of the finished goods for which the whole process was initiated. So what we are up to here, that in this way we will be able to calculate the selling price of each process individually along with the overall selling price. So that is how we use the word process costing. Now, before we enter the procedure of process costing, because it will take various sessions, we need to understand few basic things, and one of them is normal loss, another one is abnormal loss, and the third one is abnormal gain, and they all are related. Now, how we will justify that in each process we will have the input. Now, this input can obviously be of the raw material or the input of that particular process. Now, that particular process may result in some anticipated losses. That is, the output of that particular process may not be equal to quantitatively to the input. सिंपल भाषा में, अगर आपने उस प्रोसेस में 100 किलो का माल डाला, तो वो जरूरी नहीं है कि आउटपुट जो है वो पूरे 100 किलो की है। तो अगर हमें लगता है कि एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोसेस में लगभग, अगर मैं 100 किलो का माल डालूंगा तो वो जाके मेरे पास सिर्फ 90 किलो आएगा, इट मीन्स आई एम एंटिसिपेटिंग दैट देर इज अ लॉस ऑफ 10%. It means if This 100 kg of input was purchased at a price of rupees 10. Therefore, the total cost of input was rupees 1000. But the output can never be 100. Therefore, this 1000 rupees denote the cost of 90 kg. So effectively what is happening, the cost per unit has been increased. So this figure will come out to 11 point something. So there is a inherent increase in the cost because of the recurring or anticipated loss of the production process. So there is always a bound to be, or we can say there is always a normal procedure that there can be certain inherent quantity loss in a particular production process. एक बड़ी सिंपल सी कहानी है कि अगर एक हलवाई है और वो गाजर का हलवा बना रहा है, तो अगर उसने 5 किलो गाजर डाली, तो 5 किलो गाजर से 5 किलो गाजर का हलवा तो बनेगा नहीं, कुछ तो क्वांटिटी लॉस होगी। और वो क्वांटिटी लॉस कहीं खराब नहीं हो गई, but because of various reasons of the production process, this is not possible that the output will be 5 kg. So depending upon the nature of process, there is always some loss which is bound to be there. And if we are able to anticipate such loss, then we use the word normal loss. And we always say that the normal loss is a part of cost accounts. So because normal loss is a part of cost accounts, hence the cost of normal loss will be borne or will be added by the finished goods. That is the output. So if that was not the case, then we would have not taken the cost as 11.11 and it should have been rupees 10. But because the loss was normal, that is why the cost of the output has increased, or we can say that the cost of the normal loss have been absorbed by the output. So whatever loss is anticipated in a particular process is known as normal loss, and we say that every input will be reduced by the normal loss as provided in the question, and that will give to the normal output, and that will help that whatever is the total input cost in a process shall be divided by such normal output, and that will give the cost per unit, that will give the cost per unit of that particular process. But sometimes an input of 100 kg with an anticipation of 10% loss may give the output as 90 kg, or there can be an output which is more than 95 kg, or there can be an output which is less than 90 kg. So what is happening here, that this 10 kg was the anticipated loss known as the normal loss of the business. But in this case, the actual loss is only 5 kg. So what is happening here, that the actual loss is less than the normal loss. And if that is the case, then this is not a part of cost account, as it is an abnormal gain, as it is abnormal gain. And if this case you see here, so what is happening here? That is the actual loss is 15 kg. So what is happening here? That the actual loss here is more than the normal loss. So when the actual loss is more than the normal loss, then we use the word abnormal gain. So we can summarize it this way, that input minus normal loss should give you normal output, But if somehow input minus normal loss and minus abnormal loss will give you actual output, and vice versa, that input minus normal loss shall be equal to actual output plus abnormal gains. Abnormal gains. So what we are saying, that when we will calculate the cost per unit, the normal cost per unit shall always be calculated on this format. So this is the way to always calculate the normal cost per unit. And this normal cost per unit will be used to value either the abnormal losses or the abnormal gains. So whatever are the abnormal loss of the abnormal gain, they will not be, won't be a part of cost accounts. In this case, they will not be a part of process cost and will be transferred to costing P&L account, as no abnormal item is a part of cost accounts. So if I say that in a process 1000 kg was the input at the rate rupees 10, so the total raw material was 10,000 rupees, the labor was 5,000 rupees, and the overheads was 5,000 rupees, and that 20,000 was the total cost of the process. And this process has an anticipated loss of 10%, and that is the 10% was the normal loss anticipated, but the actual output was only 850 kg. So because we anticipated the normal output to be 900 kg and actual output is only 850 kg, therefore there is a abnormal loss of there is a abnormal loss of 50 kg. So what we will have to do, that the total cost of 20,000 will be divided by the normal output to arrive at the figure of cost per unit, and that will come out to be 20,000 divided by 900, and the cost is coming out to be 22.222. So the actual output of 850 multiplied, the actual output, I'm again saying that this actual output of 850 multiplied by the cost per unit, this figure of 1,889, this will go to the next process, and the value of abnormal loss as multiplied by the cost per unit, this figure of 1112 will be transferred to costing profit and loss account. So we will see that we will value the normal loss as, or we can say that normal loss will have no value and its cost will be absorbed by the actual output and the normal output. सो जो एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोसेस की आउटपुट है वो उस प्रोसेस के नॉर्मल लॉस की कॉस्ट को कवर करेगी, लेकिन अगर उस प्रोसेस में कोई abnormal लॉस है या कोई abnormal गेन है, तो ना तो एबनॉर्मल लॉस के कॉस्ट के कारण कॉस्ट पर यूनिट बढ़ाई जाएगी और ना किसी एबनॉर्मल गेन के कारण कॉस्ट पर यूनिट कम की जाएगी। तो जो भी एक्स्ट्रा लॉस हुआ है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एबनॉर्मल लॉस और जो भी कम लॉस हुआ है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एबनॉर्मल गेन, that will not be passed to the cost account. Instead, this extra loss or less loss in the form of profit will be transferred to the costing profit and loss account, and that will increase or decrease the profit only for the current financial year, and thereby the cost accounting will not be affected. Now, this is the first concept about the process costing where we have to understand how what is abnormal loss, what is abnormal loss, and what is abnormal gain, and how they are valued. In the next session, we will undertake the cost unit, and in process costing we don't create a cost unit in the normal format, we adapt it in the form of an account. So the cost unit, or we can say that the cost sheet of each process is created in the form of a account. So we will create process accounts, that is the cost sheet of each process separately, so that on the debit side we will have all the expenses of that particular process, and the output of that process will be credited on the credit side of the account, so that it becomes the input of the next process. And in this way we will create the process account in the next session on the topic. Thank you very much.